There was a bag of fresh spinach sitting on my doorstep, nestled right into the corner, like someone had placed it there carefully. I hadn't been grocery shopping in weeks. No one I knew had left it. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I already knew exactly who had. That single bag of wilting produce was the moment everything stopped being something I could explain away. But to understand why it terrified me the way it did, I need to take you back to the alley and the window and the dream I woke up from and didn't want to believe was real. I was 21 years old when I moved into that apartment in Louisville, Kentucky, pre COVID, 2020. I didn't have a car, so the neighborhood made sense. Central to everything, walkable, close to bus lines. It was the kind of block that had college students on one end and people sleeping in doorways on the other, with pockets of money scattered in between. My partner at the time found the place. We were living on a friend's living room floor, so we moved in immediately. I didn't even see it first. If I had, I might have said no. The building sat on the corner of a busy street and an alley. Most units faced the street, but 3 units in the back, mine included on the first floor, were only accessible through a gate a couple of yards into the alley. You had to walk into that alley and through that gate just to get home. Every single time. My partner and I broke up shortly after we moved in, so it was just me. I was walking to work, an hour and 10 minutes each way, and either walking or taking the bus at night to get home. I'd grown up in worse neighborhoods. I'd been a street kid in high school. I knew how to handle myself. I always carried weapons. I confronted people who followed me. I knew the tips, but I was also drinking a lot back then, stumbling home from bars and friends' houses, sometimes not making it back until 6 or 7 in the morning, sometimes breaking into abandoned buildings with my girlfriend at the time, just for something to do. I was out there at all hours, visible and loud, and I didn't fully understand what that meant. There was a lot of opportunity to be watched, a lot of windows where I was exposed. Living in that alley unit, I saw things at all hours. One of my first nights alone, someone tried the back gate. I banged on the window and scared them off. I watched a neighbor's car get broken into. I saw someone walk out of a building across the way carrying a stolen television. It was that kind of place. You kept your doors locked and your head down and you kept moving. I kept my windows locked too, most of them, except for the living room window during warm months where I'd let my cats out onto the porch and sometimes forget to close it. And my girlfriend and I had broken in through windows before when we came home too drunk to find our keys. Hopping the fence, hoping something was unlocked. It wasn't a great system. One night, I came home late after closing down a bar with friends and drinking into the early morning at someone's place nearby. I fed my cats and passed out. I had a dream. I don't usually remember dreams when I've been drinking heavily, but this one I remembered. It felt like sleep paralysis, the kind where you're convinced you're awake, but your body won't respond. In the dream, someone was standing over my bed, a man standing over me and touching something. Whether it was me, himself, or the bed, I couldn't tell. I just remember feeling completely frozen, completely unable to move, scared in a way that felt too specific to be random. I woke up hungover and chalked it up to a bad dream. My friend, I'll call her Kayla, she lived across the street and texted me that morning asking if I wanted to take a walk. I got up, went to my spare room to find clean clothes, and stopped. The window was wide open. I stood there for a moment trying to make sense of it. Every window in that apartment faced the porch behind the gate. My first thought was one of my cats, but they were all inside, and the spare room door was always kept closed. I was almost never in that room. It was overflow storage, a catch-all, nothing more. I looked closer. There were finger marks on the glass, the kind left when someone slides a window open from the outside, gripping the pane itself. And then I saw the lock. The locking mechanism was broken, loose. It no longer worked. I met Kayla outside. We laughed it off at first, that nervous, disbelieving kind of laugh. But it stayed with me. It stuck like something caught in my chest that I couldn't shake loose. I told myself the lock had just broken, that maybe I'd left the handprints myself some other time. I texted my ex-girlfriend. She'd broken in through windows before when we were together, so I confronted her directly. She seemed genuinely confused and scared for me. I nailed my windows shut. I installed a door alarm. I called the police, a difficult decision in Louisville in 2020, in the months surrounding the killing of Breonna Taylor and the protests that followed. A lot of people in that neighborhood had every reason to distrust the LMPD, and calling them felt complicated. They offered no solutions. I asked my property management company to move me to a different unit, install bars on my windows, or release me from my lease. They offered nothing either, so I posted on Instagram. I asked my friends for help. I gave my cats to people I trusted and stayed in a friend's basement for a few days just to get out. And then the messages started coming in. Girls around my age in the neighborhood. Someone said a man had followed her home. Someone else said a man had stood outside her backyard staring while she was sunbathing. Someone had found potatoes left on their porch. One of my male friends with long hair had been followed home from a bar until whoever was following him realized he wasn't a woman and stopped. Story after story, and they were all pointing toward the same description. A small framed man, noticeably thin, short, dark hair, gaunt face. I asked my upstairs neighbor if she'd seen anything. She told me that on the night in question, she had seen a man matching that exact description messing with my window. She assumed he was a friend of mine who'd been locked out. She hadn't said anything. Through a chain of connections, a friend of an acquaintance of a friend, we eventually landed on a possible name, a photograph from a separate Facebook profile. It matched my neighbor's description. It matched what others had described. The more I learned, the worse it got. Months passed. I was at the neighborhood bar most nights. It became a kind of hub, a place where people who'd had similar experiences could find each other. I told the bartenders what was happening. I showed them the one photo I had of the man, though you couldn't see his face clearly. I would find out years later that he showed up there, stood outside the pizza place attached to the bar, and stared through the window at a friend of mine who was working that night. The bouncers and bartenders chased him off, told him they'd put hands on him if they ever saw him again. But the fear was doing things to me. I stopped eating. I was using cocaine because I didn't want to fall asleep. I stayed up through the nights, smoking, watching the alley, waiting. Then he let me know he'd been watching. He sent signals, details that could only have come from someone who had been following me for months. Every time I'd come home with groceries, Every time I'd walked down the street having a loud conversation and unknowingly passed him on the sidewalk. He had been listening, he had been watching, and then the window was open again. Spare room, same window. This time the door to that room had been left open too. A few weeks after that, the spinach, a bag of fresh produce, the flimsy plastic kind from the produce section, placed carefully in the corner of my elevated doorstep. I went through every possible explanation. I often cooked with spinach, but I hadn't been grocery shopping since this started. My upstairs neighbor, but the porch layout made it nearly impossible for it to have rolled or fallen there from the stairs. I asked everyone I knew. Every single one of them thought the question was strange. I left it there. I watched it wilt. I watched it mold. It felt like the only message I could send back. Not long after, Kayla told me she'd seen him, standing on a stoop in the lot outside her living room window, looking in. She would see him again after that, and again. By that point, I'd met someone, a boyfriend, and he spent a lot of time at my apartment. He always said it felt wrong there. We'd stand at the window at night and watch things happen in the alley below. I was parking my car in the lot behind Kayla's building by then, because parallel parking a minivan on a busy street as a new driver was not a realistic option. One day I walked over to my car and saw something tucked under the windshield wiper. 2 movie tickets for the 2021 Candyman, crisp, unwrinkled. They looked brand new, not like tickets that had been sitting somewhere for months. I had seen that movie with my ex-girlfriend when it came out. I photographed them and sent the picture to my boyfriend. He told me it was probably nothing. Years later, after we had both moved out of that neighborhood entirely, he told me the truth. He knew exactly what they were, and he was scared too. He just didn't want to make it worse. The thing that finally gave us something concrete happened when Kayla's landlord, who lived upstairs from her, came downstairs with a shotgun after finding the man looking through her window again. Before the man could run, the landlord demanded his ID and photographed it. The police were called. I don't know exactly what came of that specific call, but when Kayla sent me the photo of that ID, I sent it straight to my mother, who works as a paralegal. She pulled his record. He was in his mid to late 20s. His record started with something tied to a child support dispute, a stressful situation that seemed to be the beginning of an escalating pattern. After that, trespassing, breaking and entering, assault, the kind of violation that leaves a permanent mark, domestic violence, charge after charge building on each other. I had told myself for a long time that maybe he wasn't fully aware of what he was doing, that maybe something was wrong with him in a way that made him less deliberate. That record told me otherwise. He knew exactly what he was doing. He was choosing his targets, young people, people who were vulnerable, and he was escalating. Eventually, I got out. I moved into a new house in a different neighborhood with my boyfriend. I stopped using cocaine. I significantly cut back on drinking. I spent the years after trying to put distance between myself and what happened. I still think about the dream. I don't know what he actually did while I was passed out in that apartment. I don't know if I walked past him on the street and spoke to him without realizing it. I don't know what he was capable of. I only know what his record showed and what it seemed to be building toward. What I know for certain is that I had moments where my gut told me something was wrong and I explained it away. The window, the handprints, the dream. Each time I found a reason to make it smaller than it was. And each time, he was still out there. After reading other people's stories on this subreddit, I started thinking about going to the police again. Not because I trust them to act, but because I want what I know to exist somewhere official. Even if nothing comes of it, even if it just adds one more layer to his record and makes it harder for him to disappear the next time he does this to someone. I believe he is still out there, and I hope whoever he's watching right now has better luck than I did at trusting what they feel. If this story stayed with you, if it made you think about a time your gut was telling you something you tried to talk yourself out of, drop it in the comments. I read every single one. A like helps someone else find this who might need to hear it. And subscribing means you won't miss the next story. These things happen more than people talk about. Someone should talk about them.